the ever-lovable Christina Consolo, a.k.a. RadChick, who teaches me new things on a daily basis, taught me a little thing about something that's called the Wigner Effect. Now, I'm only going to give it a glossing over here tonight, but you should all go to her YouTube channel, RadChick. Just look her up on YouTube. You can't miss her. Just type in RadChick channel. It'll bring up the channel, and you can click on it and subscribe. And she did a series with Lorraine Murray, and this huge interview she did with her about Wigner, the Wigner Effect, and what I'm about to talk about a little bit. And it gets more in detail, and she shows different cases to, evidence to back up what they're both talking about and discussing. And, this is something that's been known since they started doing nuke testing. So, anyway, and I can't remember the name of the doctor. His last name was Wigner, but I can't remember exactly, hence the Wigner.
Did you say Wigner or Wigner?
Well, I guess that's how you'd say it if you had the German accent, or Wigner. But yeah, I think it was Wigner. Anyway, I can't remember his first name, but he studied, basically it's like what radiation does to metal and things like that, like the structure of how it's affected on a molecular level by radiation. And what happens is radiation actually causes everything across the scale. Everything. The human body, building materials like concrete or steel, it breaks down. Okay, now obviously we know some of the effects of what it does to the human body, but I bet you a lot of people don't realize that it affects metal, causes early metal fatigue. It can affect concrete, other building materials. So she told me about this, and at first I was like, come on, because you could have planes falling out of the sky. You could have Ferris wheels breaking. You could have like construction sites collapsing and things like that. And that's what she was telling me. And I was like, well...
Is it that dramatic?
Well, yes. Because what it'll do is it'll weaken the metal. And then the metal just, once it reaches its fatigue point, boom, it just snaps. And then there's some catastrophic failure. Whoa. So she was telling me all this stuff. And I was like... And she said, look, there's accidents. And she showed me evidence. Not that I didn't believe her, but I was just like, okay. But as soon as Christina opened my eyes to it, all of a sudden, like I started noticing that there's accidents at amusement parks where stuff is just snapping. In France, there was one of these bungee things, right? With those thick-ass cables where you're in that round little cage, and they take you up and they slingshot you back and forth in the thing. Well, one of those steel cables snapped.
Dude, what a ride, huh?
Right. Well, it looked crazy. And a lot of this stuff is starting to happen, so I'm paying attention. There's Ferris wheels breaking. And it doesn't have to affect the entire structure at once. It only has to, you only need one small thing to break to have a catastrophic failure. So usually it's like a 50-cent part that breaks and kills, 150 people.
I was going to say, normally it's some of those shady friggin' carnivals, those roving carnivals.
Well, okay, now that's a perfect example. Picture one of those roving carnivals, right? And picture that they already don't take care of their crap. Now picture because there's higher levels of radiation, not only from all the atomic weapons testing, but Fukushima and or either could, numerous other things that could cause it. But let's say Fukushima itself, right? Just that, plus all the radiation in the air from bomb testing over the years. That could, the effect that has on metal, it's aging it much faster. I mean, when you understand this and then you start to go look at our infrastructure, you're like, wow. You have to wonder how much of that is natural progression and how much of it has been sped up by the exposure to this radiation.
Of that radiation actually contributes to that. I don't know,
Well,
is that even measured?
That's what this Wigner effect is really like. And Christina is the one that's brought it to the forefront, like, because this studying was done by them on the effects that radiation had on building materials and stuff back in like the 50s during the time of the nuke testing, heyday. They know this. They've known this for like 50 or 60 years. Look, I started paying attention just, I guess, in the back of my head, noticing things. And just since she told me about it, I've noticed plane crashes, helicopter crashes. I mean, dude, Coast Guard choppers going down, Marine Corps Ospreys, which, okay, they crash because they're known to kill Marines, but still.
Yeah, I was going to say,
Yeah, I know. But still, one of those went down. Small planes are crashing. Big planes are crashing. There was a stunt plane the other day that was doing a stunt, and the tail ripped off, and the guy in the middle of the guy doing the stunt, and it crashed, and he was killed.
Wow.
death at an air show, I think in New York or something. There was a crash at an air show in the UK. Like, you start to see this, you're like, holy crap. And it's always structural failure. Something.
So here's the question. Does solar radiation apply for that as well?
If it's high levels, I believe it could.
Because think about what just the sun does to material. Say like plastic. You know, if you have plastic exposed to sunlight, over time it dulls it and then it makes it brittle. And then eventually, it just falls apart. So it's interesting because, the sun does a lot of that too. And consequently, our magnetic field is at its weakest that it's been in a long time. And so you have that component of it as well. That's, I think, compounding issues.
Well, even if it's not the only one, it's like force multipliers.
No, that's what I'm saying. We're being bombarded. It's amazing.
Dude, it's ridiculous. And then not only does it affect like building materials, but then radiation, they also know that radiation affects the mental stability of people. It literally can like cause no impulse control, things like that.
And where are they located?
All over this is the part. This is the scary part. It's all over the world. Not only is it here in the United States, it's all over the United States, but you also have it all over the world. You have to remember, Fukushima is putting this huge plume of radiation into the atmosphere, and jets flying through this stuff.
You said concrete, it weakens concrete, right?
It weakens all that stuff.
Okay, so what's the sarcophagus around Chernobyl? What's that made out of?
Oh yeah, it's breaking down. They need to make a new one.
That's not good.
Yeah, I don't think people realize this. Okay, and this again, credit goes to Christina, because she's the one that like would sit and listen to me pick her brain for hours, and just she's the one that really has given me the in-depth education onto the things that I didn't understand. No containers, none can hold radiation. They don't have anything on the planet currently that can hold it in without breaking down over the course of time, including all those containers that are holding all of that radioactive water in the tank farm over at Fukushima, which, oh, by the way, there's a spike in radiation. It was like, I think she said it was like 400 and something becquerels, and now it's up to like 40,000 becquerels over the course of like 3 days. So something is leaking over.
Is that it?
Yeah, something's leaking over at the Fukushima.
My microwave puts out more than that. Come on.
Yeah, well, that's what most Americans would think. I mean, they don't even understand.
Exactly, they don't have any. Dude, because how are you supposed to know?
It's real.
You know what I mean?
It's well, you have to do the research, but it's real simple. Just look at what's going on the West Coast. And by the way, if they wanted to know what was going on the West Coast, again, to quote Christina, test the effing plankton, unquote. Okay? If you test the plankton, they've known since the 50s. Another thing that they did research on, and I talked about this on the show, where they've known that it bio-accumulates in plankton like 1,000 times what it normally does in other things. And what eats plankton? A lot of the sea life. So what happens if they're eating irradiated...
Like radiated plankton? Well, then like tuna have their eyeballs falling out.
Oh, but what do you see happening to whales and sea life?
Oh, their eyeballs are falling out.
Oh, so what did Christina say? Oh, that's right.
She said specifically, quote, this is to quote RadChick herself, quote, their eyeballs will fall out, unquote.
Well, dude, seriously. She called this a very long time ago. Mm-hmm. She said that I've made mention of it. I've talked about this before. Loren Murray has. All these different people have, Kevin Blanche, all these different activists have come out, and all the other Fukushima activists who I haven't named, Miss Milky, everybody.
It's an extinction level event.
Yeah, but nobody wants to talk about that.
No,
it scares the shit.
It's slowly killing the planet. That's what it is.